So welcome back. And let's start with a short practice of Tonglen in a nutshell and relying on silence. So we take the time to adjust our posture and to allow the body to settle. And then we allow our breath to guide us into the felt sense of our body as it is. It's an effortless practice, so it's not a practice of doing something, but actually of relaxing the doing. And you can do this with open or closed eyes. Keeping the awareness open with the environment and also with the presence in the group. But also becoming more aware of the inner weather, where in the body it is somewhat more tense, where does it flow more lightly, where are you numb. And then with the out breath, softening the belly and then the shoulders, and sliding into present moment awareness. And then in the gap between the breaths and in the gap between the thoughts, we get the glimpse of silence, of space, which is pervading everything. And if we start to manipulate our experience and we can stop it, then we relax. Otherwise, we just allow everything to move as it wants to move. We meditate with the body like a mountain and the heart like the sky. Receiving, like the mountain, the weather, the rain and the sunshine, and like the sky, our heart is not close to anything. Then if you get entangled into the inner dialogue, you slide back into the felt sense of your body. If there's the loving gaze needed, the presence of unconditioned love, we can call upon and invite our bodhisattva guides, our mentors, and these angels, they fill the space around you and the space between us. And we are just absorbing, breathing in the warmth, the courage, the wisdom, the vitality. Rely on silence. And the appearances, they are recognized as appearances within consciousness, vividly appearing like rainbows, like dreams, but empty, like a dream, like a rainbow. And then we can spread compassionate presence into our world, maybe with the out breath, as if we push the loving silence, the loving stillness from our being into our environment, being light, being space, being loving space. Present moment awareness, spacious aliveness. Vastness, stillness. We can appreciate that right now. There's countless people who are like us in the presence of the divine. Then we can conclude this short meditation with the intention to return here as often as possible. And return here means actually that you recognize that you're already here. You never leave this space. We just need to remember that we are already here. And may we do that again and again for short moments until they become continuous for the benefit of all. Rely on silence. Okay. So maybe I can start by returning to the last question, the last theme about the inner judge, the inner critic, and particular in what can we do when people we love are inflicted. And so I don't have children, so I guess it's difficult for someone without children to fathom the pain of a mother or a father. I mean, one can imagine a little, and we all have experiences in the same direction, but I think from father and mothers, that's very special. It's a different thing to experience it yourself rather than thinking that you could empathize or walk in the shoes of a father and mother. But I want to just share my own reflections, and basically I said it already before. That here, as a practitioners, we always start with our own inner life. So that's what we learn. That's what we get tools to. And here in the text, relying on silence and Tonglen, so that would be one of the toolbox one of the tools for the Bodhisattva mother, and I'm sure there's others, but since we are in this text now, we could then always ask the question when we learn certain practices, so how can I apply this method in this situation, in this particular situation, working with my own inner life, and it's just asking the question. Yeah, so yeah, sometimes there needs to be a bit testing and creativity, but I think one can apply many different teachings and techniques from the Buddhist tradition to every situation. It's just a matter of changing it lightly, and also just asking the question is so amazing, because then you confirm to yourself it's about my inner life. It's that's where I start to work, not over there, not in another person. And one thought I just had was, in the same way we could judge our inner judge or criticize our criticizer and trying to get rid of him, in the same way we would try to do this with another person. And by doing that, we imply to that person, hey, something is wrong with you. You should be different. Your feelings are wrong. Yeah? There's something wrong with you, and I know how to fix it. Yeah? And that's in generally a very unconstructive attitude towards someone who is in a crisis. Because whatever we try to fix or control, it falls into resistance and becomes more solidified and becomes more real than it is, by our resistance, by our trying to fix and control it. So the work, and that's also that's actually true for the work with all our internally family system. Yeah. So not to fix and control and judge, but to be compassionate, to be loving, loving attention, yeah, and inviting that family member back. That family member, the inner critic here, which you really want to have out of the house, but that's not possible, because then they just come in again, in our dreams. They break into the windows. It's like we can't keep our children outside of the house, yeah? in the internal family system. We have to invite them back to the table, even if they are really dirty and smelling and they don't behave. Yeah? So that's and that's very hard. That's in any case when we are caregivers. So it's very hard to become aware of the advice giving and of the trying to change something, and then to rely on silence. Yeah. So shut your mouth. Shut your mouth, mother. So, yeah, I think that dynamic is particularly difficult between mother and son. That would be probably easier with a daughter than with a son. And also, I mentioned the patience which comes from seeing the complexity of situations. So that would be, bringing the karmic view into it, but also this view that all of us, including our children and our partners, they are streams of consciousness. beginnenless streams. Yeah? So I'm not trying to convince you of that. It's just one way to look at each other, to see us as streams of consciousness with a long history. And the journey we make together is very short. It's a very short part of the journey of this stream of consciousness. And that stream of consciousness brought his or her karmic energy with him or her. So they were not born as a like a blank slate, yeah, but already as a person. And then sometimes when they are our children, they are in our care for a while, a very short while, yeah. And of course we have impact on them, yeah, and obviously we all try our best. But we shouldn't also not overestimate our role in the life of people, even not in the life of our children. That they have their own journey, and that's what a mother needs to do from the first day, to cut the cord, yeah, and again, cut the cord, cut the cord, cut the cord, and then that's so difficult. Yeah. So what that also means, in that stream of consciousness, there's a basic sanity, there's a basic, what is called Buddha nature, or there's a basic potential which will prevail in the end. Yeah, it will prevail. That's what is indestructible. So if our daughter is a junkie and we kind of give up on her completely, we feel she's hopeless, that's ignorance. That's a distortion of reality. Nobody is lost. Nobody is doomed. Yeah? From this point of view, because the inner judge and the pain coming with it and all of that is adventitious. It is on the surface, and the essence of these people, which we sometimes call my son and my daughter or my partner, remains untouched from that, as in you. So here again, the practice of developing a faith and a trust into that within us, which is sane, which is good, which is healed, which is whole already. And then we start to see that in people. And it is actually in research around helping and therapy, it is clearly, there's so much evidence that the factor which helps people to transform is what Carl Rogers called positive unconditioned regard. Yeah? So they found that more the therapist tries to control or fix or attack internal family systems, less effective the work is. And less the therapist actually does in the terms of giving advice, and you should do this and that, less effective the therapist is. So like a successful therapist does less and less and has more and more results. And it's really difficult for us to trust our presence, our loving presence. It's very difficult, and to shut our mouth, yeah? and work with the helplessness also. Yeah? So it has to do with learning to be with one's helplessness and with one's frustration and with one's anger. Yeah? And it's difficult to give space to that. So we want to do something. Yeah? We want to fix the problem, maybe sometimes not even for the sake of the person, but just because we can't handle the pain. We can't be with that person. So we want to feel that person better. Yeah? And this is really difficult. This is a kind of ideal, yeah, a vision. I know how, even with my clients, I have to, cut my tongue so often, noticing, yeah, that I want to offer some advice, And it never works. But if I shut up and I give myself what the person needs, then something can emerge within our dialogue. And the best is if it emerges from the other, that it becomes the idea of the other and not something I say. Yeah? It's better that what emerges from the mouth of the other is not that good, yeah, because it's his, then from that something better, I mean, it's difficult to say what is better, but something more wise from your mouth, yeah, which is then not received. And particularly like in people who are in this kind of existential crisis, often through advice we make it worse, because not only they feel bad, now they also feel bad because they can't do what you say. Yeah, so there's more pressure on them. So they, of course, they hear the truth in it. Yeah, but they can't take it in, and then but it still adds to the pressure. So the inner critic writes it down in this big book of failure. Yeah. So now I'm failing in everything, but I'm also failing in what mother says. Yeah. So.
Yes. Thank you very much. It's helpful. I've tried to basically try to work with my own sense of losing control.
Yeah.
And I can't control him, of course, or his life. It's not my task to do that anymore. If it even were when we need boy, of course, I try my best, but not now. It's the same with everything in the life. You can't control it. You don't know what's happening. You can't control it. And
that's right. And we have no idea what is good or bad. I mean, maybe this crisis in your son's life is, will be the platform of very, very beautiful things in the future.
Yes, maybe, yeah. Or maybe not. And that I find it most successful and instinctively to try to keep calm.
Not try. Rely on silence.
Yeah. Try to keep calm as best as I can, and then I have to take care of myself.
Yes. Yes, you have. Yeah, and then calm. Yes, and then the practice of Tonglen. That's also something one can do for a person. So I notice that when I do that with my mother, then. And there in the practice of Tonglen, in the giving to another person, you change the internal image of your son. Yeah, so you see him radiant, you see him full of self-love. Yeah, and of course, I mean, I assume even that has an effect. But what for sure has an effect, the view we see a person, yeah, in the immediate contact. So if you see a person as screwed and hopeless, that is a different thing than believing in that person and seeing the beauty in that person. And it's in the immediate contact. So what I think one can kind of help to draw out that quality a bit, but also internally, instead of when you have a mental image of that person, you panic and you get stressed, you can have you can make more contact with your softness. So it also reduces your own struggle in it. But I think it has also an effect because reality is not objectively what it is for us. Yeah? So I think the way we see the world and we see people, there is some magic in it somehow.
May I say something?
Yes.
It's one of my favorite topics because I'm a mother of 3 with 2 long-time sick children. And thank you also for bringing this up, because my heartbeat is about 180. So my nervous system is saying, no, you don't go in there. But my heart says yes. And thank you for what you said, Stephan, because I wrote a poem in the lunch break, because it's so much I want to say, but you covered it, but I will say it anyway. I found out that the power of the mother force, that's nothing you play with. It is so deep in the cells, in the consciousness. I don't know, I can't describe it. It's just and one thing is to know, and another thing is to understand it deeply in the body and in the soul. And just before I read the poem, that I found out was actually a prayer for myself. But I will give it to you, Åsa. It's a gift for you. That is also to understand, like, the outside problematic. Is it a disease? Is it a mental illness? Or is it, you know, because there are a lot of people that know a lot of it. So please search answer, knowledge, search some knowledge that is, so we, like for me, I was walking in my bad habit shoes, trying to save something that wasn't mine to save. But when I got knowledge about how I could help, that also released the outer prison, maybe I can put it that way. But the inner work is that we can do, of course. So here's the poem.
Can you put down your screen a bit so we can see your face? Yeah.
I don't see myself. Do you see me now?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
If it will hold, okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Sweetheart, rest in love. You gave him life. Rest in your goodness. Rely on silence. This is not in your hands. Get to know your helplessness. You are enough. Rest in love. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Thank you, Mara. I'm touched, really.
Yeah. Yes.
Might I have a comment? Är jag med någonstans?
Sorry?
This is Yeshe Norbu, Lena again.
Yeah.
After that wonderful poem.
Okay, yeah. Now I know. Yeah. Okay.
I'm so far away in the picture, that's why.
Yeah, yes.
Kind of can't relate.
Difficult to hear, but it's okay.
And so that was a beautiful poem, and if I would have been wise, I would have not now commented after that. But I have a long way to wisdom, so I will still say, if one would dare to say something, maybe one would put a question to yourself there, also, but also to your son, and maybe not being so interested in the answer, because putting the question of a light situation, an easy situation where he has handled this, because maybe he's coming to you and telling you all the times it didn't work, you know, but he can handle it, and he has handled it, and help him to turn his focus to how he does. And maybe the easiest, the lightest, you know, how did you handle when we were having a drink with your buddies and somebody said something which doesn't matter, but he handled it somehow, you know, like small things. And then you should not care about what he answers. You should not have a conversation about it. Just leave him to kind of pick up the thread and go on. So that's my suggestion. And thank you for the poem again.
Thank you. That's also good advice. Thank you.
Yes, these kind of open-ended questions. Yes. Yes, I thought to just come to one last verse, which summarizes the book, and that's verse 36. In short, in everything you do, question how your mind is, moment by moment. By being constantly present and aware, you bring about what helps others. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. In short, in everything you do, question how your mind is, moment by moment. By being constantly present and aware, you bring about what helps others. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. So there again, this constantly practicing day and night by becoming aware, by being aware, by noticing what is happening. And to do this for short moments again and again, so that it becomes an automatic process. Instead of the automatic process, I'm not good enough, there is this question. And so what is happening? How do I feel? How can I be with this, what is happening, in a more peaceful way? How can I make space for this? Yeah. And then also becoming more aware when we lose our mindfulness. And here mindfulness, in the original meaning of the word, which is memory. Yeah. So the word sati, which is translated as mindfulness, means memory. So the memory of being aware, and then noticing when you are not. So noticing that you are in reactivity and noticing that you are in escape, that is mindfulness. Yeah? So it's not a sign of failing, it's a success. In the moment where you kind of wake up and you notice, wow, the last half an hour I was really swept away and I tried to numb myself. So that's a moment of mindfulness. And it's an informal practice. So we might need to spend some time in formal practice to explore this process, but then we allow this process to become more natural, driven or inspired by our curiosity and love. Being interested in all situations, into our inner life. And here inner life means a lot, the inner life in the terms of the felt sense in your body. So the relying on silence also points out to this habit we have to tell us stories all the time. Why is this happening? Where does it leading? And so on, and judging. And relying on silence means to again and again drop that and rely on. And that's what he says. By being constantly present and aware, you bring about what helps others. So you bring about. So that's this connecting with your loving intuition. Yeah. So not listening to the inner dialogue, but relying on silence and listening and waiting. So what wants to emerge? What's the next thing to do? And allowing words and action to arise from that space without having a plan. Yeah, without having without looking like forward and planning. So it's not like a strategic move, what you say, but you come from a deeper place, and then trusting that. Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. No. You unmuted yourself again. Yeah.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, it's. I think it doesn't work, and then I press it again, and then it stops working. So I don't know.
You need to clean up your computer.
Yes. Yeah. It's an old one. It's since 2010, so it's still going. But I was thinking about this now. You're always in your mind often in the future or in the past. It's very rarely that you're in the present, and I feel like that's a little bit what you're saying or trying to communicating, that to not wander off in your thoughts, in your wishes and ideas, and rather try to be in the now, in here now.
Mm. Yeah. You don't need to try to be in the here and now, because that's where you already are.
Yeah? Exactly. Yeah.
Recognition. And
but it's somehow not letting yourself go with your
the challenge here is that we can't stop the thoughts about the past and future. So it's more about seeing them, being aware of them, and kind of undermining them by not feeding them. Yeah. And you feed them by trying to control them or trying to think differently. So that's also regarding the inner judge. It does not work to positive thinking does not work with the inner judge. So if you have the sentence "I'm not good enough," I'm not good enough, it's just very provisional then to set another narrative against it. Yeah. And then there comes this discussion between the inner judge and the yeah, but we all have Buddha nature. Yeah. And the inner judge always wins because that's how you really feel. Yeah. So it's a bit tricky, but you are right. It's the practice of being here now. Yeah? Knowing that being here now is all we have, and that it's already happening. So it's not an effortless practice. It's not a practice of effort. And maybe there's, when we read a verse like this, be always present, be always aware. Maybe we read it a bit as, oh, this is so hard, this is so difficult, then I need to be so strict and so mindful all the time. But that is not meant here. It's a joyful effortless practice of just being where you already are and relaxing the doing.
It's almost it's almost like the thoughts are so dominant that you grasp at the thoughts. Let go of them. I don't know. Yeah.
Yes, and that's like one of the first steps is to become aware. Wow, my thoughts, they are very dominant. I see my world often through the inner dialogue. So then you become aware of that, and nothing else, no antidote. Just okay, being aware, being present. My thoughts are very dominant, and then rest in silence.
Can I share one thing?
Yeah.
I had an encounter with the inner judges the other day in meditation, and I was sort of feeling into them a bit, and then I was thinking, wow, here they are. And then I was thinking, but here is also love. And then I sort of leaned more into the loving feeling. And that was sort of I don't know if you would count that as an antidote, but that was quite kind of helpful.
Yeah, and it's like noticing that something else. So like, so there's one thing, but then there's also something else, and there's always something else. But also in the communication with the internal family system, in the Tibetan tradition, they are called the demons. Yeah, we start to see that also the inner judge is actually an expression of love, and it was born from love. It was born from protection. So the inner judge takes this really hard job because he thinks or she thinks things will fall apart if I don't do this. It's really a hard job. Yeah, constantly trying to, like a mother, her child, yeah, constantly giving advice, constantly criticizing a little. You should do it like this, and this would be better for you. And your own inner judge has also that protective quality, and there's a lot of energy in it. So that would be also important to integrate this energy back, and not trying to cut it out or trying to argue with that, but to invite that person, that inner judge, back and start a dialogue with her, yeah, and telling her, actually, I'm grown up now. Thank you for protecting me, but we have to do something else now as a team, yeah, and I need you. Is there something else you need? And is there something you want to contribute? So that would be the feeding the demon attitude, transforming the internal family members into allies. So the practices of changing your inner dialogue, like in cognitive therapy, of course, it has its values, but it's very provisional. It's not the solution. It can't be. You can't convince the inner judge of something, or try to dissolve it through different kinds of stories. That's not going to work. It's just a temporary relief, which is good, but we need to go deeper than that. And they have realized that in cognitive therapy, not in Sweden yet, but it's coming, guys. It has failed us, cognitive therapy. Yeah, so I think that's a beautiful first to close this book. The invitation to mindfulness, mindfulness as the memory of what is important, and then familiarizing ourselves with that, exactly like we did it now this weekend. So I hope I said rely on silence often enough during this weekend, so that we have memorized it. Yeah. So that's like, I mean, if we take that sentence with us, from this weekend, and maybe for a while use it as a bit of a mantra. And then slowly you will notice that it becomes an automatic process. Yeah? So like I'm not good enough, it's an automatic process now because you have trained it so much. Then we can install more wholesome processes into the internal family system. And then everyone there has to memorize it. Yes. not only the practitioner in us, but also the little ones and the team of judges. I mean, there's not only one. So there's a whole team of judges. So they all have to memorize that thing. We have to sell it to them. So that it's good for them, that they like it. It's called unifying the mind in the meditative tradition. It's unifying the internal family system, unifying the team, so that we all work together towards awakening. And you can't leave anyone behind, because everyone is needed. Because everyone carries a part of your vitality, part of your life's energy, every one of those guys. And so that's called unifying the mind. So on this path, there will be less and less conflict between the family members, and more constructive working together. This image of the internal family system also makes it more obvious that there is no boss. Unfortunately, there's no captain. We need to be more skillful than that. We can't rely on some kind of authority. Shut up, guys. I'm in charge. We have no freedom in that, because there's nobody who could give that order, and then everything, okay, boss, we do it. That position is vacant. Yeah, I think that's it. Maybe we can close our weekend with a bit of appreciation and joy of our connection. So it's a beautiful practice in the Tibetan tradition called dedication. So we're shifting again into the felt sense of your body, and then just enjoying this moment of togetherness and rejoicing that we all took the time for this space, creating this space together. And it was very fruitful dialogues between us. I'm very happy about that. And we can rejoice in the courage of some people, of us, to show up and to be a bit vulnerable and share. So it's very precious to have spiritual friends like that. And then the silence, the loving presence, which we have had glimpses of during this weekend, we give it away into our own internal family system, but also into the wider family system of this planet, because they are all our family, the people and the animals. So we contribute calm, peace. We contribute our intelligence, which emerges when we rely on silence. And sometimes we can clothe, so verbalize that kind of sharing in a dedication prayer, also directing this energy to particular people, like to the son of Asa, and to my mother, and to the people you worry about. Of course, those of you who are mothers, your children and your partner and your parents, and then also to our teachers, Lama Zopa, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the centers and projects, Yeshe, Norbu, and the other centers. May all beings be happy. May all beings feel safe. May all beings come home. The far ones and the near ones, the small ones and the big ones, the powerful ones and the weak ones, the visible and the invisible. May all beings be happy. And may people look after each other. Also the animals. May people look after each other and the animals. And then we can particularly connect with all the unknown bodhisattvas who are right now in our hospitals and older people homes. Try their best. Not only in our countries, but in those countries where it's really difficult, India, Nepal, and so on. Countries we also have connection with, because without India and Nepal, this weekend wouldn't happen. And then also to our own awakening. So strengthening the intention for the next days and weeks and months to grow up and to wake up. The practice of relying on silence and Tonglen. Seeing yourself in the next days and weeks and months to pause and to travel with your breath into awareness, into presence, pausing and relying on silence. And then act from that intelligence which emerges. Okay, thank you very much. I really enjoyed this weekend. It's really nice to have a weekend with not so many people because you were quite good in making comments and asking questions. So it's a bit more difficult when there's more people. So, and of course, it also helped that we knew each other a little from the previous meetings. So I really appreciate that. It's for me much more joyful than just sitting and talking. So then I also learn more. I learned a lot during this weekend through your comments. Yeah. So there is that group wisdom, and that is good for my business. If I become wiser. Yeah. So thank you for that. And of course, for me, it's always particular because I'm in a difficult situation here. For me, it's fantastic that I have, that you create spaces like this where I can connect with these texts. I'm a little forced to connect with these texts. So thank you for that. And yeah, thank you, Sarah, for helping and organizing, sending out the mails and communicating with me about this. And so that is also the conclusion of this little group. So it was a bit of a test, and I'm sure I will communicate with Martin and with Sarah if we do something similar after summer or next year, maybe with another text or something like that. And then next weekend, no, in 2 weeks, I think, in 2 weeks, I will lead a little weekend retreat together with Ulrika from Bad Stena. She's a yoga teacher, and we actually had planned a spring retreat, but we canceled it. So it's reduced to a weekend online. And so that will be also with yoga. So Ulrika will do some yoga sessions, and then there will be some teachings and guided meditations. And then the retreat in Göteborg is also online, and that will be also with yoga with Helen, who has been teaching yoga in the summer retreats in Göteborg since 10 years. So that will be a whole week. I don't know if there's people interested in a whole week of online retreat. We try, but I think these weekends that's quite nice. If there's movement in between and enough breaks, I think it's good. And in Göteborg, it's similar like here. People feel safe because they know each other since many years. Many of them since 10 years. So it's a good group to join, and I'm sure there will be exchange and questions. Yeah. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you again, and yeah, we stay in touch if you want. I will continue. See you. Bye.